A lot of really cool ideas when it comes to itemization and ability design. And one of those really cool ideas is ability charges. The idea that an ability can have multiple uses stored up is really interesting to me, as it creates more decision making and can completely change how a character is played. But right now, I think charges are handled in a really unhealthy way, and there are a few main problems. One problem is there are too many abilities getting free charges, and too many characters are getting way too much value out of charge-based items. The second problem is that more abilities should be capable of having charges. And the third problem I'm going to talk about is Echo Shard. I also want to clarify something before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video. Rem's little helpers are their own thing. You can say that he has 4 charges of little helpers, but I see that as being completely different from what is typically considered a charge. I view Rem's little helpers as more of an additional resource that Rem has to manage instead of them being an additional charge that he has. So with that out of the way, let's get into the video. The first problem is that too many abilities are getting charges just by leveling them up. Some abilities are completely fine with having multiple charges. I think Holiday should get 2 barrels without having to invest in extra charge, but 3 is a little bit much. Same with Kelvin. I think him having 2 charges is totally fine without having him invest into getting more charges, but I also think that he should have to invest into leveling up his ice grenade to get the second charge rather than just getting it for free. Getting extra charges should be something you actually have to invest into. Instead of every character getting free charges just by leveling their abilities, extra charges should be something that you have to invest into, making it a privilege to have extra charges. Take Paige for example. Paige is a perfect example of a character where charges make sense, but they shouldn't just be given to her for free. If you want extra dragons for damage, you should have to invest into things like extra charge and rapid recharge. That way you're making an actual choice. You are choosing to build around having more damage, but you are sacrificing a slot that you could use for a defensive or supportive item instead. This would also allow charge-related items to be buffed slightly because they would become more specialized. And instead of every player thinking, hey, more charges, that's nice, it becomes more of a, I'm specifically building into this playstyle. The second change I think needs to happen is that charge items should have to be imbued, which, a side note, imbuing is another game mechanic that I really like and would love to see expanded upon, and at some point I will be making a video on that, so subscribe so you don't miss it when that comes out. But right now, Infernus, Holiday, and Venator have multiple abilities with charges, and the problem is that these characters can get double value from charge items because multiple abilities benefit from them. I don't think that's healthy for the game, and it creates situations where changing one thing affects multiple characters in multiple ways, making balance much harder, as these abilities are linked, and what happens to one will affect the other. Take Holiday, for an example. Right now, with Rapid Recharge, Holiday gets 5 barrels and 3 jump pads, and on top of that, Holiday can very easily build Rushing Recharge that when procced refreshes both a barrel and a bounce pad. That's just way too much value. Instead, she should have to choose which ability she wants to imbue. Do you want to be extremely mobile and invest into your jump pad, or do you want to focus on damage and have to invest into your barrels? If you choose mobility, you won't have 20 barrels to throw at people in fights and you'll do less damage. And if you choose damage, you won't also be getting the insane mobility. There should be trade-offs. As having trade-offs is what I think makes build crafting in Deadlock so interesting. Now, I know I've just been complaining about charges this entire video, but I actually really like the idea of charges. The reason I want the changes is because I want the developers to have more room to add interesting charge-based items. Right now, charges are both a balance problem and a design limitation for the devs. But if they were handled better, there could be so many cool items built around having charges. For example, imagine a high-cost item that gives you even more charges, but there's a downside. Maybe the ability does, say, 15% less damage, and or healing in the case of Kelvin ice grenades. Now you have a real choice. You get to use your ability more, but each individual cast is weaker. Or maybe there's an item where if you're at max charges, your first cast deals bonus damage, similar to how Mystic Burst works. And maybe even Mystic Burst could be a component to this item. Or Maybe there's an item that gives you a super fast cast time in between charges, allowing you to use your abilities quickly in a fight, but the time it takes to get those charges back is much longer. It could even have a mechanic where repeated use of this ability gives you a buff that gives the imbued ability amp damage, similar to how escalating exposure works or how Paradox's pulse bomb damage amp works. This creates a burst window with a long period of downtime, because you'll have to wait for all your charges to come back to have that massive burst again. This will allow for some more interesting choices, as you might not want to fight without all of your charges, as you can't have that big burst that you normally would. Another interesting, more supportive idea is, what if hitting someone with 2 charges back to back interrupts channeling abilities? Imagine Viscous stopping Bebop ultimate by hitting him with a puddle punch right before he starts, and then as he starts channeling his ult. Now, these are just some half-baked ideas that I came up with for this video. Imagine what a dev team as talented as the people over at Valve can cook up. There are so many interesting possibilities that could come from expanding upon the charge system in Deadlock. And if you have any ideas for charge items, I'd love to hear them, so leave a comment down below, or come join me in my Discord and we can talk about it there. I want more abilities to be capable of having charges. Imagine Bebop having charges on his bomb. That means that Spirit Bebop isn't completely useless after using Double Bomb. It also means that hook combo isn't just hook into Double Bomb into I just took 1500 damage because I got hit by a single ability. There would be a delay between the uses of bomb, giving Bebop's victims some time to react. This would also make it so that Dispel Magic doesn't make Bebop's combo basically useless. Another example is Mirage. I think his Tornado should become a charged ability, maybe only after maxing it out like how Venator's Grenade Charge works. That way, instead of being able to use 4 tornadoes back to back to back to back, he has some downtime in between each tornado so that the CC is broken up, giving whoever Mirage is fighting some kind of counterplay to his tornadoes. This would also force Mirage into investing into getting those extra tornadoes, meaning he's giving up something else in his build. Now, obviously, this doesn't magically balance these characters and their abilities. There would need to be other balance changes. For example, I think the bullet evasion that Mirage gets from his tornadoes needs to be removed, but a Mirage rework is not the point of this video, so I'm not going to be going further down that rabbit hole. Echo Shard. This item needs to be reworked. Currently, Echo Shard instantly refreshes an ability on a cooldown. And while that can create some cool moments, I think it leads to a lot of unhealthy gameplay. Instead, I think Echo Shard should give a non-ultimate ability an extra charge. Right now, a lot of Echo Shard users are just abusing their extremely powerful crowd control abilities. Think things like double Graves Wall, or double McGinnis Wall, or double Sinclair Bunnies, just to name a few. The problem is that most Echo Shard abusers are just using it to spam more AoE slop. Turning these abilities into charge-based abilities would make placement and timing matter more. Take McGinnis Wall. If you want to play Wall McGinnis, that's completely fine. But you shouldn't just be able to spam walls and turn an entire area into a death zone. I think having multiple walls available in a fight is cool, but there should be enough downtime in between each wall that your opponents can actually play around it. Or take Page with Double Root. Getting Vortex webbed into Double Root isn't really fun, and honestly, it doesn't feel particularly skillful on the Page's part either. It's just throwing more AoE slop at someone. But if there was a delay between each route, suddenly that extra charge requires more skill to land. You actually need to hit the ability a second time rather than just spamming it twice in the same spot. Or even Rem's tag along. Having a cooldown in between healing his entire team will give the enemy some time to burst down someone before it comes back up and he can do it again. Or even a chance where Rem himself is exposed and you can try and kill him before he jumps onto his team and heals them again. Changing Echo Shard to work this way becomes something that rewards good players that think about when to use their abilities instead of just creating more ability spam, while still letting you use more abilities than you would normally in a fight. Now, there obviously would need to be some big balance changes around these items. But one important thing is that extra charge and rapid recharge should not work in combination with how the new Echo Shard works. Because imagine 4 McGinnis walls or 4 Sinclair bunnies. That sounds absolutely miserable. The goal isn't to create infinite ability spam, it's actually to reduce it, as well as creating more meaningful choices around how you use your abilities. But anyways, I think I'm going to leave it there for now. I think charges are actually a really cool mechanic, and I would love to see them explored more in Deadlock. I just think they need to be handled in a way where players are making actual choices instead of just getting more ability spam. If you have any ideas for cool charge items or changes that you would make, or if you simply disagree with me, I'd love to hear about it. So please, leave a comment down below and come join me in my Discord, link in the description, and we can talk more about it. Okay, bye.